Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome back to the Same Old Arsenal podcast, episode 80. Bottled it in Baku. And obviously, a nice round number to finish the season on. So 80 podcasts we've done in total. So there's the judge. He's not technically gifted, is my mate Judge. Look, I mean, what's the... Sorry about all those noises there. I don't know what's going on there. I think he got a text message or something. He's got those novelty text message noises. Bottled it in Baku, episode 80, the last podcast of the season. Very, very disappointing. A very disappointing way to end the season. I'm sure you'll all agree. The last 6 weeks of the season, there was a bit of a kick in the nuts for everyone. Should have qualified for the Champions League with ease, but we didn't. The season's over now. We can't do anything about it, but we're going to have a chat about the Europa League final and what the boys think of it. So, introducing, as always, Graham, how are you doing, sir?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Still not great after last week's result. It took me a long time to get over it. It really did hurt, that one. Really did hurt. Softened obviously slightly by Tottenham losing the Champions League final, but to be honest with you, I'm more concerned with Arsenal, and that really did hurt. It wasn't so much the defeat, it was the manner of the defeat. And I know we're going to get into it tonight, but the manner of the defeat, I've been following Arsenal since 71, as people know. I've watched Arsenal in 25 finals, and that is the most humiliating defeat, I think, of any of those 25, mate.
Yes, I'd have to agree. Harry, how are you, sir?
Good, thanks, mate. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much. Very well indeed. The Europa League final, mate, very disappointing.
Bitterly disappointing, to be honest. And I agree with Graham. It was a complete and utter embarrassment. But you know what? The way our season ended in terms of our league form, you can't say that it wasn't coming. And, it's been coming for a while. I think the last couple of months of the season have been an absolute shambles in every sense. And, questions have to be asked of the playing staff and, of course, the manager.
Hello?
Oh, hello.
Hello.
All right?
Yeah, I'm having some technical difficulties here.
Normally what you do is you wait for me to say, and Lee, how are you?
Yeah, but you're going to have to put up some IQs or something like a sign. Listen, I'm just to tell everybody here that I'm the one me and Harry can't hear each other, right? Let's just get this right, and I'm the one, Harry, with all his technical ability, I'm the one that they've lumbered it with, and I can't handle it. Handle it, but there you go.
And to be honest with you, I'm just checking it. I don't even think we're live on YouTube either. I'm not too sure that it's working, to be honest.
It is. I can see it.
Is it? Oh, okay. Well, that's all right then.
Yeah. I'm getting
can't see it. Is there people in the chat room?
Yeah,
there's people in the chat.
Why can't I bloody see it?
66 watching.
Hello, 66 of you. Welcome. Thanks for coming along. Let's introduce Lee properly, shall we? I'll tell you what. Someone told me today. Someone tweeted me today and said, "Do you know what? Your podcast is average at best." I think he's right, to be honest.
Listen, we're not the only ones that are having technical difficulties at the moment.
That's very true. But anyway, judges, how are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm all good. Thank you very much. Obviously disappointments of last week. But before we start, I've just got to say the absolute tragic news about Jose Antonio Reyes. What I mean? Absolute shocking. Found out on Saturday. And I'm absolutely gutted. Who thought that he would have been one of the youngest players in that squad, would be the first one to die. And very, very sad. So thoughts go out to his family. Like that, puts life in perspective when you lose, get stuffed and humiliated in a final, and then something like that comes along. So just picking up on what Graham just said there. I think the last two cup finals we played in have been humiliating. 3-0 against Manchester City, that was over with. I'll tell you what, that one was even worse because I was freezing cold that day at Wembley. It was horrendous. And I'm going to say this now. I don't know about you guys, but I'm fed up. I'm fed up with the team just capitulating.
Yeah,
and it's not the first time. I see us capitulate at Wolves after conceding the goal. I've seen us capitulate at Liverpool. I've seen us capitulate in a cup final. You know, as far as I'm concerned now, you know, it's rip it all up and start again. I think that there's a mentality problem with the whole lot. And do you know what made it worse? I don't know how you guys feel. I know it was bad all the way round. Do you know what hurt me the most? Is that when we scored to go 3-1 up, within a minute we conceded again.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You know what? You know, and I'm just so disappointed with Arsenal. And I put out a tweet earlier on that I just need a break from them. I need a break. I'm certainly over this summer period not going to miss Arsenal at one iota. I'm not interested in about who they're going to sign and all the rumours going around. I've got no interest in whatsoever. All I'm interested in is to see who they're going to sign. And as far as I'm concerned, it's got to be 4 new defenders and a big clear out. I think someone said on Twitter the other day, when was the last time Arsenal had a massive clear out? And I can't remember, Craig. I cannot remember. I don't know if Graham can say.
I think we've ever had one, have we?
I don't think we've ever had one. So that just shows you how bad our football club is at the moment, because I cannot remember us really having a full-scale clear-out, even back in the Terry Neal days. I don't really recall that happening.
George Graham days, when he got rid of all the old guard, bringing in the young players through the youth team, would that have been as close to it as you could think? You know, the Rickses, the Nicholses, the Andersons.
Yep, I would have to probably say that was probably it. You know what I mean? But it wasn't massive what we're looking at now. There was still some good pros there. Steve Williams, David O'Leary were still there at the time. Kenny Sampson, which he did get rid of a couple of years later. But yeah, you know, he did bring in a lot of young players, and unfortunately, I don't think the young players are as good as those players, Graham, that were coming through. So worrying times at Arsenal, I have to say, worrying times.
Well, I think if you're asking me about it, I think the whole club is up in the heat. The club, the fan base. I mean, like, I'm going to start off with it now. I mean, like, it's not just one person. It's been lots of people having a go at me because I want to have a go at Spurs fans because they lost the Champions League final. Like, that's my duty as an Arsenal fan. My duty as an Arsenal fan is to take the piss out of Spurs when they lose. When they lose, I'm taking the piss. I don't care that we got hammered 3 days before. If Spurs lose, I'm taking the piss. Say that to a Sunderland fan. When Newcastle lose, they take the piss. Sunderland are in League One.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
It's just, you know, I mean, I just don't get it. People, we're in no position to be bantering. Yes, we are in a position to be bantering them. When we lost to Barca in the Champions League final, they were going to sports shops and buying Barcelona shirts.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Do you know what I mean? And you want to tell me that I can't? You know, I'm not like, again, I'm talking about everyone that's told me that I can't do it. Tell me that I can't banter a Spurs fan because I've got no right to be bantering them. I've got every right to be bantering them. We've won the league at their ground twice,
and they still bantered us. You know, Craig, that day, do you know when we lost that final, the next training session, because I was still playing at the time, like the next training session, every Spurs player come in with a Barcelona shirt.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? Like, and thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
And there is in 100 positions worse than us at that time. You know what I mean? We just got to European final. They didn't even, you know, they was halfway down the league. It was irrelevant. It was, you know what I mean? And they would still banter us now, you know what I mean? And don't give me any shape or form that we won the league, you know what I mean? When we lost to Manchester United in the 49th game, they was all loving it, you know. So don't give me that.
No.
You know what I mean?
No. Like, anyway, I just wanted to get that rant over.
Yeah, I'm glad you have.
Get on my nerves. Harry, I can't see the live chat, mate. For some reason, I can't log on to YouTube on my phone for a reason. Good. So when I get to questions, you or Harry are going to have to do it.
We've got a super chat donation, Craig, from Bill Hemmett. So
thank you very much, Bill. Every week or every time we do a podcast, Bill donates. Thank you, Bill. Much appreciated, mate. Also, before we get going, we had a little competition running, didn't we? Where our friends at the North Curve, and if you haven't followed them yet, please do go and follow them at the North Curve. on Twitter gave us a Arsenal cushion to give away to celebrate the 1989 anniversary. Lots of you entered, over 350 of you entered, and the North Curve have gone through them all, and they picked a winner, and the winner is at Pro Bean, and his name on Twitter is Charlie Gunner. So at Pro Bean, Charlie Gunner, if you're watching, congratulations, mate, you've won the cushion. If you could DM, well, what I'll do is I'll DM you later on, or you can DM me, and we'll get your address and we will get that sent to you ASAP. So congratulations. Thanks to everyone who entered. Nice little giveaway there. I wouldn't have minded that myself. But obviously would have looked a bit of a fix if I'd have won it, wouldn't it? Anyway, let's start with Harry. The Europa League final, Harry. I was absolutely confident we were going to win that game. Absolutely confident. I even said that Chelsea would have been the ones worrying about playing us because we've been so good in Europe this year, bar away in France, probably away in Portugal. It wasn't great, was it? But we've been a different side in Europe, I think, is what I'm trying to say. You felt more confident about us in Europe, and then obviously we go out there, all the controversy surrounding it. Where it was, Mkhitaryan couldn't play. Fans getting asked by the police to cover up Mkhitaryan on their jerseys while they were walking around.
The Czech leak.
Yeah, the Czech leak. Yeah, the tickets going back, this, that, and the other. Put a massive, massive downer on it for me as a spectacle. But going into the game, I was so confident we were going to win. So confident. And then that happens.
See, I wasn't quite so confident. I just want to say before I start talking, if I sneeze, I apologise, guys. Hay fever is killing me tonight. In terms of going into the game, I wasn't overly confident. And I actually went on TalkSport the night before the final. And I ended up having a bit of a debate with Perry Groves because he was telling me that Arsenal were, without doubt, the favourites. And I was like, that's not the case, in my opinion. Chelsea have finished above us in the league. We're not on form. And at the end of the day, they've got Eden Hazard, and for me, he's the one player on that pitch that was world class, and you will always feel that a player like that can win a game like that. So, I didn't feel particularly confident going in it, but I never imagined in my wildest dreams that we would get slaughtered the way we did. I felt like in the first half we'd done okay without really threatening too much. We sort of opened them up on the flanks. I felt Kolasinac and Maitland-Niles were getting forward well, but their final ball was awful. And, you guys will know that I've not been Unai Emery's biggest fan all season. And I'm not going to just jump on his back because of the final, because it's not just down to him. It's partly down to him, but it's not just his fault. The players didn't turn up on the day. But what I would say is the fact that we ended the season hoping that Kolasinac and Maitland-Niles would provide some creative spark and that we've relied on them for so much of the season just shows you that there's a real lack of creativity in this side. And I know the Ozil debate is a whole nother debate, which I'm sure we'll discuss at some point. But for me, we're not using our creative players the way we should be. Mesut Ozil isn't turning up at the moment for whatever reason. If he's fed up with the manager, I don't know. There's lots of talk, isn't there, that he muttered a few things on the subs bench when he came off, etc. Again, it's all speculation. We don't really know. But I just feel like that was the ending to our season that was coming for a long time. And we had opportunities to put things right, and we just didn't. And it's just our season fizzled out in the most disappointing manner. And despite the fact that lots of people will say, oh, at the beginning of the season, I didn't expect us to finish in the top four. I didn't expect us to win the Europa, etc. You cannot help but be disappointed in the way we ended that campaign, both in the league and in the Europa League. It's really disappointing. And I think that if you're not asking questions of the manager, and that doesn't mean you have to be shouting from the rooftops, sack him. But if you're not asking questions of the manager, then for me, you've not got Arsenal's best interests at heart, because we shouldn't be so attached to a manager that we are blinded and accepting all sorts of mistakes. For me, Unai's got it wrong in this last part of the season. He's as much responsible as the players, and that the way the season fizzled out just summed everything up for me, and shows that in actual fact the progress we've made this year has been minimal.
Yeah, I mean, I've been people who watch the podcast know that I try to stick up for Unai Emery as much as I can. I think he's a good manager. But even me, I mean, I came on to Harry's phone-in show there the other day and said that even now, I realise that the questions have got to be asked of why, we got stuffed 4-1 in the Europa League final. Why is it the players have gone off the boil? Why can't you get Mesut Ozil to play football? Graham, these are the questions that have got to be asked of the manager, surely.
Well, they will be, won't they? I think the thing is, we are pretty much where I thought we would be with Emery. And that is that we're we've improved one league position and we didn't get back in the Champions League through the Europa, which, to be honest with you, I always thought we wouldn't. I thought we had a shot at it, but I think the questions have to be asked more around where we got ourselves into the position to do that, why there was such a spectacular collapse. I think that is the fundamental thing. And I think the last 6 weeks of the season, as Harry has touched on once or twice, questions have to be asked why there's been such a spectacular collapse, why he got the end of the season league games wrong, and almost like he put all his eggs in the Europa League basket towards the end. So questions will be asked of him, and quite rightly so. And I think he's missed his big opportunity. And that's what I feel. I think next year the landscape is going to be harder. And I think that I always saw Unai Emery as sort of like not the solution to getting us back to where we want to be. I see him as like a caretaker, if you want, or whatever you want to call it, somebody who to try and get us back into the Champions League over a 2 to 3 year contract. And if he couldn't do that, we would move on. I never saw him as the person to bring back the greatness at Arsenal. I think he's someone who's come in to clean up the mess. And I think that's how I see it. I think what he got wrong on this night, and I know it's so easy to say in hindsight, and people will criticise me for saying this maybe, I thought he went with the wrong formation. We beat Chelsea at the Emirates in a 4-diamond-2. With a stronger midfield supporting our front two. And what we did really well that day was that obviously we had Ramsey at the tip of the diamond. We didn't have that this time. And he marked Jorginho out the game, cut off Jorginho's passing lanes. We didn't have that. So, but I think if we'd had the extra man in midfield, I think we would have been, I think, stronger in with somebody at the base and too hard working. Because what Chelsea did really well was they managed to disconnect our front three from our midfield, and what they also did was they took away our key strengths. Our key strengths was our forwards. They literally crowded the box, so it was almost like they gave us the wide areas. Harry said that we were making progress down the wings. I thought Chelsea gave us those wide areas. Kolasinac's pass completion rate in that game was only 45%. That was telling. Ozil was sort of like, I think the way Ozil plays, I think he's on the wane, if you want my honest opinion on it. He's not as good as he was, but the way Emery sets up his team to play is almost like the least effective way to utilise Ozil's strengths. And all he is somebody in plays between the lines who basically just sort of like funnels the ball out wide to the wing banks. Hence the key passes per game and big chances he creates now substantially reduced. It's almost like the worst version of Ozil you could ever imagine. But what they did really well is they recognised that our two strengths were Lacazette and Aubameyang. They basically took away our two main strengths by crowding the box. We couldn't get sort of quality up around them to support them. And then what happened was that Chelsea, it became like a game where you always felt we had to score the first goal. If you look at the big games we played, when we scored the first goal, we keep our shape, we keep our structure, and we manage the games well. That's what Emery likes. The problem I have with his team is two things. One, we don't deliver when we're under pressure, which is clear. Whenever we concede the first goal, we wilt. But there's no real strategy for when we go one goal down. When we go a goal down, we seem to struggle with being a goal down. And I think what happened then was the team becomes less structured. The players play almost like as individuals. They lose their shape. And that's exactly the game plan Chelsea wanted. They wanted us to open the game up. The moment we opened the game up, they had people like Hazard who could kill us and the game was done. And I think that was the key thing. We had to get the first goal the way we set up. We didn't get it. Chelsea defended really well first half. We had our chances in the first half in terms of getting into good positions, but we never really had hardly any shots on goal. We only had 4 shots on goal in the first 60 minutes. And what really annoyed me watching that game, I wanted us to be more direct. I wanted us to get the ball forward quicker to Lacazette and Aubameyang and get support around, and we never did that. And as a result of that, Chelsea were comfortable in the first half. I thought towards the end of the first half, the warning signs were there. Chelsea were getting better. And once we didn't press, we stopped the intensity we had at the start, dropped at the start of the second half. They worked that position. Emerson was not challenged. We don't defend crosses very well. We don't stop crosses coming into the box. And I think if there's one thing we need to do in this transfer window, we need to get a better defensive platform, and we're only going to get that by buying a couple of quality centre halves. I saw a debate on Twitter actually last week was, if somebody come in with £100 million for Lacazette, would you sell him for 100 million? And I think that as much as I don't want to lose our two strengths, if we could get sort of an inflated price for one of those forwards that gets us two really quality centre halves, and gives us a chance to build a defensive platform, and then we can re-energise a team with youth and energy and around a forward. Because I think basically playing two forwards and Ozil clearly doesn't work. I think that'll be the way going forward. But we lost this final really because we didn't get the first goal. Once we went a goal down, the game opened up to what Chelsea had. They had Hazard. And he basically took us apart. I think Mesut Ozil is symbolic of this team. He's someone who loves to play, but somebody that can't do the work off the ball. And I think that his task in that game was to stop Jorginho. He did it for about 15, 20 minutes. And we had our best period in the game. But the moment he stopped doing that, Chelsea started passing out better. Their midfielders dragged our midfielders around out of position. And the moment they got the first goal, I think the game was dead. I think once we had to score that first goal, we didn't do it. And they just sort of like got the first goal. And then basically we capitulated because we just can't play under pressure. One thing I will end with is saying we need to find a way of managing a game when we're one goal down. When we're one goal down, it's all about, Lee knows more than this as me as an ex-footballer, it's all about staying in the game. When you're one down, you don't want to just sort of like become all disorganised and unstructured. You just need to manage the game for 15, 20 minutes. And that's where you need your leaders, Lee. I think we need your players to say, let's go again, lads. Let's go again. Yeah, go on.
I was just about to say, mate, we haven't got one.
No.
We haven't got a leader, have we? That's exactly why we do capitulate, I think.
Yeah.
There is no one to pull everyone in and say, all right, it's 1-0.
Yeah.
Calm down.
And the other thing is, the moment it becomes like a game where it's a physical game for athletes, where you want runners, we haven't got midfielders who are physical. We haven't got like a lot of athletic players in the team who sprint to the ball. These other teams have got that. This is what modern football's all about. And I think the moment the game becomes stretched, we haven't got athletes. Like Xhaka's a classic case. He's not very mobile. He can't cover the ground. Chelsea have got people like Conte running around, and that's an irony, isn't it? He was apparently not fit for the game, yet he looked more fit than some of our midfielders in that game. He was running around the whole game. We haven't got athleticism and physicality in our midfield. We've got no leaders at the back. We're heavily reliant on our front two. What Chelsea did was they nullified our strength. They took away our strength. They crowded the box. We had that one chance in the 15th minute where Kolasinac got in. If he had delivered a better ball, we might have got a tap in. Yeah. But they still had four in the box. In the game at the Emirates, our two forwards pulled their centre-halves wide a lot and created space in the middle. What they did quite cleverly this time, Chelsea, was they crowded the blocks. It was always 4-on-2. They gave us the wide areas as if they say they didn't really give a toss about our wing-backs having the ball in wide areas. They knew they were going to deal with the cross. Once they took nullified Lacazette and Aubameyang, who quickly become discouraged, I thought, with a lack of quality around them. They virtually were halfway towards winning the game. Once they got the first goal, we didn't have the strategy or the mental strength to respond. We became unstructured and they just took full advantage. And in the end, it was an embarrassing performance. And it was, it really did hurt me, that result, I have to say.
Well, I mean, we could finish there, really. Judge, a bad result. We were sending audio messages in the chat, about how we were feeling and stuff like that. And I said to you that we've taken the good for so long, for so long. We have. Let's be real. We've qualified for the Champions League 20 years on the trot. We've had titles, doubles, invincible seasons, FA Cup wins. Champions League finals, okay, we lost it, but we've had, if you go back and you add it all up, we've had more good times than we've had bad times. Now, if you take the good times, you've got to take the bad times. And I'm pretty sure we might be heading into some pretty bad times. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that we are. I'll start off with that. When I first started supporting Arsenal, Graham a little bit earlier than me, but we was always a UEFA Cup team, never a Champions League, because there was only the champions there. We was battling for the UEFA Cup. If we could.
Yeah, but only one team went in the European Cup.
Yeah, that's right.
The champions.
But we was never battling for the title, Graham. We was always like fourth or fifth.
Yeah.
And that's the way that's what we were. And I'm not, I never got the ump when we didn't come second or first or challenge for the title. But since then they took away Highbury. Once they took away Highbury for the Emirates, I'm afraid they changed the goalposts. They took all away our history and all that. And then to be in a position where we're 50 times worse than what we was back then, it is not acceptable. And that's why the fans get frustrated. If we were still at Highbury with 35,000 ground and we was where we are now, people would accept it and say, okay, fair enough. But when you take away and give us all these promises and pay all this high money for what we're getting, it is not acceptable. It's not. And that's where the frustration. And I'll never forgive Arsenal Football Club, because it's not the same Arsenal Football Club that I supported as a boy. It's completely different now. And that's why and going back to the cup final, I have to be honest that there was 20 of us that went down to watch the game, and all 20 of us picked out the same 10 players where there was a debate on one position, and that was Czech. The rest of us all went for that exact team. So I know Graham said about he would have changed the formation, then that's fair enough. But we all went with it. We all said that was the team to go for. Probably the reason that he never went for, certainly if Ramsey was fit, he would have been definitely in it. And I think that over this course of this last 5-6 weeks, we've missed Ramsey more than any player. Any shape or form, more worrying that we're missing a player that's leaving than anybody there. Now, also, which didn't help us on that Wednesday, was that Mkhitaryan wasn't available. Now, Mkhitaryan's not been their greatest player, but against Valencia, when the game was sort of drifting away from us a little bit, he came on and made things happen and turned it around for us. And he's done that on more than one occasion. So we was limited in a few positions. People will come back and say, well, Chelsea had players missing and all that. And I agree with that. But, we sold a dummy with the Conte thing, because he was 100% fit. You can't run around like that and not be, doing a little gentle jog on Tuesday and running around like that on Wednesday. Physically, it can't happen. So they put in a little curveball there, and whether Emery fell for that or not, I don't know. I don't think he was that difference. We ran all over him at the Emirates, and the reason was we had Ramsey doing what he was doing. And I'm gonna agree with Graham on the fact is that if someone comes in big for Lacazette or Aubameyang, I feel that we're going to have to sell one of them, not because we have to. I think that modern day football now, we can't get these two into the team. Can't shoehorn them into a team. It's the way to win games of football now is to dominate midfields.
Yeah,
and that I'd love to see us go into that. If you could play 3-5-2, maybe that would be able to do it. But then you've got to, you then got to have two wing backs. You've then got to have two holding midfield players and one pushing on. But we haven't got that. We've not got none of those players capable of doing that. So you're asking to shoehorn players into positions to just suit a two, and it's a big decision. If one's 20, I think Lacazette's 28 and Aubameyang's 30 now. So, for me, it's a difficult decision. But if it was for me, and a 70-80 million pound bid coming for Aubameyang, I would have to take that and look in other areas to strengthen. We need defenders. We need defenders drastically. The other argument is that we do need someone that's going to score goals. But if we could buy perhaps a Sahar out of this, somebody else, a wide player that's going to take on players, maybe then we could get more ammunition to whoever that forward will be. But I also think that it's time now to, if we've got no money, and which I think's a joke if we haven't, then for me, I don't want to see us bringing in 30-year-old players that are on the wane and all that. Let's go for the young players, give them a chance. They can only get better. You know, like Socrates, for instance, is an okay defender, but he ain't top notch. I don't give a monkey's what anybody says. You know, he's the best of a bad bunch. It's as simple as that. You know what I mean? He's not top quality, and he's, you know, people say to me, "Oh, he's a good defender." Well, is he a good defender up against Van Dijk? Is he a good defender up against Vertonghen? Is he a good defender up against Toby Alderweireld? No. We've got to bring in quality players somewhere along the line. Now, if we haven't got to do that, then let's try and make some. And I'm afraid that if we've got youngsters and they can't be brought on like the Ajax boys have been done, then get a manager in that can. It's as simple as that can coach young kids and bring them through. You can't be in the middle. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you either go for an elite manager who's going to buy all top players, or you go for a manager that's going to bring on young players and can coach them and make them better. But what we've got with Emery seems to be a little bit of everything, a little balance in everything, and it's not good enough. We've got to go with a sit down and a plan now and saying, look, do you know what? We're going to go down this route of young players. We're going to bring them on, and if it doesn't work, so be it. But you know, I'm prepared to go down that route than go with 30-year-old players that have played a bit here and a bit there and still be in the same position we are now. You know what I mean? Like, and you know, I don't want to see Maitland-Niles playing wing back no more. I don't want to see him playing right back no more. I want to see him playing central midfield like he did at Old Trafford and bossed the game. And I want to see him do that more often. And I'll be happy if he does that. You know what I mean? Because he's English, 2, he's young, and 3, he's an Arsenal trainee. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see, you know, like Chambers is being left out of the side at the moment because of, you know, let's get this right, Mustafi, Koscielny and Socrates. You know, come on. You know what I mean? Like, young English player, give him the opportunity. If he makes mistakes, he makes mistakes. But I can tell you this now, he'll make the same mistakes as all of them 3 I've just mentioned. But the fact of the matter is 24, 25, when the others are 33, 34, 35, Craig. That's my thing now. We're in a place now where we've got to either say to the manager or the board's going to say, do you know what, there's 200 million, go, but I'm giving you 200 million, but my God, you better not waste it. Or we go down the route of getting on the youngsters. At the minute, you know, I feel that we're going to have to sell one of our players. You know, people will jump on the bandwagon and go, oh, you can't sell your best players. You can't sell Aubameyang. You can't sell Lacazette. Liverpool sold their best player on Coutinho, or they thought they was their best player. It turned out to be the 2 players that won in the Champions League on Saturday night was the goalkeeper and Van Dijk, the 2 players that they bought from the Coutinho sales. So there's your answer. Now, people go on about Liverpool, Craig, right? And this is what annoys me about Arsenal as well. People go on about, oh, I've seen it on Twitter today. Oh, he's not Champions League signing. He's not a Champions League signing. Was Lallana a Champions League signing? Everybody used to moan when everybody was criticising Liverpool when they bought Mane. They bought with like a club like Southampton. They picked all of Southampton's better players. You know, the fellow, I can't say his name, the Dutch fellow, I don't know. Come on, Georgie, whatever his name is. They signed from Newcastle.
Wyarnham.
Thank you very much, Graham. They signed him from Newcastle. You know what I mean? And what they've done is they've cherry-picked a few players from the Premier League and got them in. But I didn't hear one Liverpool fan turning around and saying, well, he's not Champions League class. He's not this, he's not that. They believe in the manager and they believe in what they're going to do. I see, you know, Ryan Fraser. I don't really know too much about him, Craig, if I'll be honest, at Bournemouth. I've not seen great deals of him. I don't claim to. I go and watch Arsenal, so that's, you know, I don't claim to do it. Other guys might know a little bit more about him, but don't diss him because he plays for Bournemouth. Don't do that. You know?
Oh yeah.
You know,
well, this is it, mate. If I can jump in, I mean, there's 2 players. There's 2 players that I would buy now if we could get them in, and that's one of them would be Ryan Fraser, and the other one would be Maddison from Leicester.
Yeah.
Right. 2 instant upgrades. I don't care where they've come from. Fraser on the left wing is an upgrade. And Maddison in the middle is an upgrade as well for me.
Well, we've lost Ramsey anyway, so we've got to replace Ramsey. Who are we going to replace?
I don't see why. Like, put it this way: if Ryan Fraser played for Chelsea and he wanted to move, and we could get him for 20 million, it'd be the greatest signing ever.
But Craig, I don't think it's necessarily people being snobs about the club that he plays for. For me, when I look at a deal like Ryan Fraser, I look at him and I think, is he a good player? Yeah, he's an all right player. Is he top level? Probably not. But the argument would be that from a business standpoint, as a football club, if I was running a football club, I could go and find a player with those attributes on the continent and I'd get him for half the price. There seems to be this premium when people buy from other Premier League clubs, and the Liverpool players that we mentioned there, Mane, Lallana, they all went for big money. Southampton have been living off themselves for years. And that's the thing you've got to decide. Do you want to pay the money instantly and get a Premier League player, or do you want to not do that? Because Arsenal, from what we're hearing, are not really in a position to go and blow. If the transfer budget is £40 million, would it be responsible to spend half of that on Ryan Fraser? I don't think so.
He's 26 years old. He finished only one behind Hazard in the assists. And for £30 million in this day and age is cheap. In my opinion, that's cheap. Would you agree, Graham? 30 million for a Premier League proven winger who is up there with the top boys in his statistics?
Yeah, he's certainly created a lot of chances this year and got a few assists. I'm not so sure he's worth 30 million.
He only finished one behind Eden Hazard.
Yeah, I'll take that on board. Yeah, I just think that I'm not saying he's not a player we don't need. We need some wide players, but for me, I think if I had to do, I think what we need to do is we've got to focus. The first thing we need is build a platform. We need to build a platform defensively. So the first two areas I'm looking at is centre backs. Now, if you look at what we got going this summer, we're losing. Obviously, if you look at the defence, Lichtsteiner's already said today he's off. That's it. Well, we knew he was going anyway. Monreal's contract is probably not going to get renewed. Koscielny is obviously the contract situation doesn't look like he's staying. And then we've got Socrates, the one defender centre back there, who's probably, as Lee said, probably the best of a bad bunch, who probably with a better centre half next to him might be a better centre half. But I think the first thing you need to do is to build the platform from the back, and this is what's been missing at Arsenal. I said this early in the season that Wenger never bought proper defenders. He bought defenders who could play football because that was his philosophy. I think what you need to have in Campbell being the last solid defender that he actually bought. And you've got to remember the best defence he ever had, he inherited from George Graham. What I think we need to do is, if you're going to say, if we're saying we've got 40, 50 mil, I mean, first thing you've got to think about, we've got to get rid of some players to get that figure up. But I think the first thing we need to look at, as much as Ryan Fraser, a wide player, is obviously something that I think we need. I think we need to we need to build from the back, and I think we need to get a quality centre half in somehow. Somebody who's going to be commanding. I know we've been linked with Titi of Barcelona. Now, obviously, I don't know, Harry's more into European football than me, and I suspect that that's probably due to the fact that he's only 25. So if Barcelona want to sell him, there's a problem there. I just imagine it's to do with the fact he's hardly played any football the last year. Harry will correct me on that if I'm wrong. But I'm not saying we buy him, Titi, but we need a solid centre half, and that's where we need to start building this team, because I think Lee made another great point, and that is when you play two forwards in modern football, I think modern football is all about midfield, about possession. And I think when we played two up front with Ozil behind, Ozil's not massively great off the ball, we are vulnerable because teams outnumber us in midfield. And that puts pressure on the defence. So I think if you're going to look to strengthen anywhere, I think we need to look at centre halves, and I think we do need somebody in central midfield to replace Ramsey, someone who can basically connect from the midfield to the attack, but can get back and defend in a shape, so like a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3. So for me, I'm not disagreeing with you anything about Fraser. He would be a good signing, but I don't think he's not the most important thing we need. And I think the first thing we need is a solid defensive platform, and I think we should be looking at centre halves.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is more what I'm only using Ryan Fraser as an example. I mean, there's a central defender out there now, Lewis Dunk. I put him in the Arsenal team straight away. Him and Rob Holding together.
Yeah.
Do you know? I'd be looking at bringing back Callum Chambers.
Me personally, I'm not. I think we need to get better than Callum Chambers. I'm not disrespecting Callum Chambers. I just feel we need better than Callum Chambers in the middle of our defence. Rob Holding won. The jury's out on Rob Holding. I think he's a great footballer at bringing the ball out. I'm not so sure whether he's the answer defensively. I think he's got massive potential still, so I'd stick with him. I'd stick with Bellerin. I think possibly stick with Socrates. I think if you're looking at the back, I think we've got to decide if Monreal's contract's up, we maybe keep Kolasinac, but he's only a wing back, not a left back. So I think we need a quality left back, or certainly a value for money left back who can defend. And I think we need a top quality centre half. Those, to me, are the two positions that I think is crying out in this team to be filled. And if anything, I'd give anything to have a really strong central half partnership. You know, something like, just imagine if we got to the Dutch centre half Ajax. Is it De Ligt? I'm not saying we're likely to get him. I think he's going to go to Barcelona or to a better club than us. But just imagine if we had Titi and De Ligt as our two centre halves. You know, just imagine what the confidence that would give the team. You talked about Liverpool, Alisson. Now I wouldn't say Leno's not much worse than Alisson. Alisson has done wonders, and he was good in the final. But they were good saves that I would expect him to make, and Lee made that point. But I just think, if you had Leno, to me, is good enough. If you added two quality centre halves, imagine the confidence to the team that would give. Because I think these midfielders sometimes look behind them our defence, and that's why they don't press on. That's why they don't press up. They stay at home. They're worried about sort of going forward and leading gaps when the game's structured, and they don't trust our defence. And then what then happens is when we do concede, everybody just becomes like totally unstructured and we fall apart. But I think we need a solid shape, and that would come, Craig, from having quality centre halves. We haven't had that for years at Arsenal, what I call proper defenders, a defensive platform.
Yeah,
Hard to disagree. The big massive point there that you made, Graham, was about George Graham. I think Wenger's best defence was one that he inherited. Lee, it's so true, isn't it?
Yeah. But that's what I'm getting back. That's what I'm getting. That's great that you've come in there. Like George Graham come in. He bought proper defenders. He bought Lee Dixon from Stoke. He bought Steve Bold from Stoke. He bought Nigel Winterburn from Wimbledon. It's not necessarily great name players that are doing the business, and that's my point. What he brought in was he see a structure, and that's how they were going to play. Now, I look. It does annoy me a little bit this about Chambers. If Chambers wasn't an Arsenal player, he's been playing well for Fulham, everybody would be turning around and say, "Oh, look at him playing at Fulham. We could do with him. Well, sod me. We've got him. He's our player. So let's bring him back. Now, is he going to do any worse as a central holding midfield player than what we've got at the minute? And the answer is he can't do no worse because we haven't got one. It's as simple as that. You can say about Torreira. I've seen him jumping into the box and all that. We've said about Xhaka, who's not that. So get someone in that can bloody well do the job. And if it happens to be someone called Callum Chambers from Fulham, so be it.
Lee, can I just come in there? When we bought Torreira, I thought, and I don't know if Harry agree on this, I thought we bought Torreira to be the holding midfielder. So what in effect he's done is Torreira's played slightly forward, and if anything, he was going forward in that final last week. He was playing more forward, and Xhaka has played as the holding midfielder, like a deep line playmaker. I thought that Xhaka would be playing further forward with Torreira as the holding player because he's the more defensively minded player. And I don't think so. When you say we haven't got a defensive midfielder, I think we have got a defensive midfielder. He played there for Sampdoria, but we don't use him there, do we?
Right. And I'll tell you what, he was playing that role. He was playing that role up until a couple of months in. Right. Yeah. We had Coquelin doing that for a couple of months in, and then all of a sudden they just sort of like go and do their own thing.
Yeah.
But, you know what I mean? Go and do their own thing.
Let's bring Harry in there before he falls asleep.
Now, what I want to say about that is Graham's absolutely right. Lucas Torreira was brought in to be a defensive midfielder, and he hasn't done it. He started off playing in that position, and all of a sudden he started moving further and further forward. But that comes back to the manager, because at what point does the manager say, Lucas, you're supposed to be in that defensive midfield role. What are you doing?
No, he plays him. He plays him, Harry. He plays him on the right. He plays him. He doesn't play him in that position. It's not a case of him moving there. He plays Xhaka there and plays him on the right side.
Right, but then that's the point. It's the manager. The manager has chosen to change from having Torreira playing as a defensive midfielder behind Xhaka to now playing him as a pivot together.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of the season, you used to see Torreira drop off a little bit more than he does now. But as far as I'm concerned, that's the manager's responsibility to rein that in and make sure that he's doing what he's doing. I think Torreira has suffered a little bit from burnout in the second half of this season. There is no winter break here. There was one in Italy. The game is played at a lot slower pace, etc., etc. There's a lot of factors. Yeah. So I'm not writing off Lucas Torreira. I think he's got a great future ahead of him. I was very excited by the signing. That was probably the one signing that I was excited about.
It comes back, mate, to what you were saying about how he keeps flipping the formation around. So when we play that diamond midfield four, Xhaka plays at the base and Torreira plays on the right. When we play the 3-4-1-2, they play as a pivot. They play together as a pivot, but Torreira is always the one, it seems to me, to be going more forward than Xhaka. So, and whether that comes from the fact that they sometimes unsure their role in the team because he keeps changing the formation. I know we've had this discussion before, but if you're playing on the right of a pivot, then all of a sudden you're in a pivot two. Sorry, on the right of a diamond midfield four, and then you're in a pivot two. Your inclination is, if you keep changing shape and formations, to actually carry on playing the way you've been playing and not respect the fact that you've got to be more holding, is it not?
That's it. I mean, let's look at Chelsea for an example, who absolutely thrashed us in the final.
Yeah.
All season, people have been absolutely slating Maurizio Sarri because he's supposedly stubborn and doesn't want to drift from his 4-3-3. Well, over the course of the season, that has paid off. They've got in the Champions League, they've won the Europa League, and now I know it looks like he's going to leave. But if he was to stay there, they would have spent that season embedding their system in. Everybody knows it inside out, and they could really push on.
And the key point there, Harry, is that Jorginho, who is the deepest lying midfielder, sits between the lines, doesn't he? He doesn't change his position, and that's what we don't have. We don't have somebody who sits in the position they should be sitting in. He plays there, and then and again, we talked about midfield. Us only having two. They outnumbered us in midfield last week. They had three in midfield, so we played with 5 out of possession. It was almost like a 5-2-1-2. So, but when they were when it was in midfield, they always seemed to me to have the extra man in midfield pulling us around with I can never get his name. I'll do Lee Judges here, Kovacic. But they had Kovacic, Conte on the right, Kovacic on the left. Apologies if I got his name slightly wrong. But Jorginho always sat, didn't he, as between the lines. He didn't move his position. They always had that.
They have a plan. They have a plan.
Yeah.
Their way of transitioning the ball from the defence forward is through Jorginho. It's always through Jorginho. They have a plan. Everybody knows exactly what their role is. And that has been my biggest criticism of Unai Emery this season, is that we've gone through a whole season. We don't know what our best 11 is. We don't know what our best formation is. So we can sit here and talk about the need to bring in centre-backs, to bring in centre midfielders, to bring in strikers, wide men. But ultimately, if I'm the owner of the football club and my manager doesn't know what he wants to do and can't give me a blueprint and say, this is what I want to do, this is why I need X, Y, Z, then I'm sorry to say this, but I genuinely believe that even if Arsenal had 70, 80 million available this summer, Unai Emery would not get every penny, because in my mind, the club are still not sure about him. Raul in his video, you know, that video done with Vinay last week, he kept making that point, didn't he? He kept saying the head coach is a short-term thing. The technical director is more long-term. His role is long-term. The head coach is a short-term thing. He kept saying that.
But surely they're not going to set him up to fail, are they?
But where we're in a position now where we're complaining about people saying, you know, we're all saying we've got a load of players that are on our wage bill that we can't afford, and now we're stuck with them. Would you put us in that position again? If if Emery gets to Christmas and you see improvement, you might say, right, January, here we go. Let's go and get some. I've got this feeling that they're going to hold some of it back because they don't want to end up in a situation where they've blown all the cash on a manager that at this point in time has not yet fully convinced them that he's the right man.
Does anyone think that Emery... when we were looking for a new manager, everyone was so certain that it was going to be Mikel Arteta, right? You know, there was pictures of him going around, you know, supposedly pictures of him arriving in London and this, that, and the other. Then all of a sudden, I remember when it was happening, you know, Sky Sports came on and it was like, well, that's it, Arteta's out. of the deal. There's someone else. There's someone else. There's someone else. My opinion of it is that Arteta came for the interview. Arteta came in with his Arsenal hat on. You know, I'm here. Let's do it. And someone turned around to me and said, "Well, to be honest with you, Mikel, you know, you're going to have about, I don't know, 50 million over the 2 years. Do you know what could you do with that?" And Arteta went, "Yeah, nice one," and walked out the door. Right? Is Unai Emery a new yes man? You know, has he come in and said, "Oh, yeah, I'll do it, 50 million, that's all right, yeah, no problem, I'll take the job"?
Well, he came in and impressed them, did he? With he's meant to have said he had a plan for every player. Yeah, I had a plan for Aaron Ramsey. I had a plan for Mesut Ozil.
But we haven't seen anything, have we?
So that's what he came in and impressed them by, and
Yeah,
also the
but
fact that he had.
done it, though, Graham.
No, he hasn't. But that's what he said.
It took him 6 months to
what-
work out where to play Ramsey.
Yeah, of course. And
He
but
left Ramsey on the bench
yeah, but he did.
Boozy for half a season.
He didn't fancy Ramsey at the start, did he? Partly that's why he didn't get the new contract. Obviously, around also the cost of the wages that he was demanding. But what it seemed to me to unravel in the end of the season was: did he lose the dressing room? And let me just clarify what I mean by that. He seemed to be taking on the dressing room, didn't he? He wouldn't play Mesut Ozil in away games. He seemed to have a vision of what he wanted. Now, did he? And the crowd didn't like the fact. Do you remember when he took players off? I've been there in the stadium. They booed when he's made substitutions and brought on players that he liked, right? I'm just wondering towards the end whether he went back. He'd taken the dressing room on. He said Ozil's got to work harder to get in the team. Now, Ozil carried on playing in the team exactly the way Ozil always plays.
Yeah,
but in the end, well, I'm just saying he seemed to me, Lee, to give up on it and just go with the players, the same old favourites, the strongest voices in the dressing room. I'm just questioning whether... Because remember, there are things said about him. I don't know if Harry knows this. When he was at PSG, where he didn't take on the big personalities in the dressing room, did he? He came across as quite weak. I know he had Neymar was massive and all that, but I'm just saying, did he lose his way? Because he seemed to be taking on everybody. Then towards the end, he just settled on the same sort of like players who he settled on the players. He seemed to be not favouring before. I wonder why it changed. Can anyone tell me that?
I've got to say this. Listen, this is a myth about the money, Craig. You know,
what's the myth? What myth?
Well, a year and a half ago, we had a £90 million bid for Lamar.
Did we?
Put in it. Well,
did we?
Well, this is what I'm saying.
Lee, 1 second. How are we putting in a £90 million bid for a player on transfer deadline day that is playing in an international friendly?
Well, I'm just saying. How is he coming for a medical? So what you're saying then is that the board is continuing to keep lying to us. You know what I mean?
Well, we know that.
Apparently,
we know that.
We had from Mbappe. Where is all the money? I don't believe that. You know what I mean? There's no club. Look, listen. West Ham have gone into a new stadium. They're nowhere near as big as us. They're putting in £20 million bids for people like Gomez this week. Like, you know what I mean? I do believe the money's there, but it's, you know, we spent 60 million on Aubameyang. We spent 50 million on Lacazette. So the money is there, but it's got to be spent wisely, and we've wasted a whole load of it. Now at the end of the day, Craig, you can say what you want about money. If the club are prepared to let Danny Welbeck go for nothing, an England international, they're prepared to let Aaron Ramsey, a Welsh international, go for nothing. They must have money because they wouldn't be throwing it around, throwing it away.
The new, just come in there, Lee. The new regime have said in that interview that Harry talked about that no player is going to get down to less than 2 years of their contract. So that was the situation that's happened with Ramsey.
Could still have sold them this year, Graham. They could have sold Ramsey this summer, or they could have sold him in January. They could have sold Welbeck in August. They couldn't sell him in January because he broke his leg, but they could have done.
You can also go back as far as Alexis Sanchez.
Yes, exactly. And they could have done that with Mesut Ozil. So there's things that fundamentally have been wrong with the board. You can't keep
the old regime.
You cannot keep blaming the manager at certain things. Now, I will say there are things wrong with the manager. You know what I mean? Like, but at the end of the day, he has gone into a cup final with 2 or 3 players missing. He's had to play a player from central midfield who's a novice to play at right back because he's not been given the funds in January. Whatever you say about wages and all that, to replace. You know what I mean? Like, you know, if I was in there, I'd be first of all, I've lost Bellerin. I need a right back. You know what I mean? Like, but we've wasted money on Liechtenstein, who is the same regime. We're going about this new regime. We blame Arsene Wenger's regime. The new regime bought Liechtensteiner. They got him on 100 and whatever grand a week, 35 and finished. So don't keep blaming Wenger's before era of that. There's mistakes being made by this group of people up the netball now. One of them is Aaron Ramsey, our best player over the last sort of 4 or 5 months. Is gone for not even a penny, Graham. So there's lots of things wrong with this board here, like, you know what I mean? And whether Arteta come in there and didn't want to take in all that, and Emery's a yes man and all that, I don't know. No one will know that. But I can tell you, if Emery has got any salt or he's any manager, if that ball turned round to him and say to him, I'm giving you 40 million, up goes my middle finger, see you later, because at the end of the day, you are making sure that I'm going to fail, because there's no manager, whether it be Arsene Wenger, Pep Guardiola, could turn that team into a championship contending side or Champions League side with 50 million. It's impossible. And at the end of the day, if that board expect that to do it, I expect that the first game of the season, that fucking ground to be empty, because it's never going to happen. And that is it, like, you know what I mean?
We're saying that though, and I agree with everything Lee's just said there. But the problem is that Arsenal went and hired a manager who isn't high profile enough to do that, to go and make those demands and to say, fuck it, you know what, I'm still going to get a job somewhere else. I'm Unai Emery, I can get a job anywhere. This is the problem. This is why they hired Unai Emery in the first place, because he is somebody who is...
Can I just cut in there? If he's not high profile enough, why did PSG take him?
But he went to PSG. He was tasked with winning the Champions League. He didn't do that. He was tasked with winning the French league. He won it 1 out of 2 seasons. For me, Unai Emery was moved out of PSG for a number of reasons. A, he wasn't good enough, and B, because he lost the dressing room, like Graham said. So, you know, clubs will always pick their star players over a manager because it's easy to get rid of a manager. It's much easier than it is to get rid of someone like Neymar, who's on 500 grand a week. That's almost virtually impossible.
Harry, if he goes to the board and says, I want Mesut Ozil sold,
yeah,
I know Ozil's on a contract, he can stay, but who's going to win that battle then? If you say the player always wins over the manager,
Mesut Ozil will win that battle, because how can the club afford to? If no one wants to pay the money for Mesut Ozil, and Mesut Ozil don't want to go anywhere, he's on that contract. How do you get rid of him? How do you get rid of him? I think that Unai Emery is a decent manager, but he's not in the top bracket of managers. And the size of this job when Arsene Wenger left was huge. And Unai Emery, like you guys have said, was only ever going to be a stopgap. But then that makes me frustrated when I hear people, like, there's nothing wrong with saying that he's not the right man. There's nothing wrong with going through 3 or 4 managers before we get to the right one, before we get to the longish term successor of Arsene Wenger. So why are people so attached to this guy? And why are people so afraid to say that he gets things wrong? Because, like you said, Greg, he goes up against certain, but he's gone up against Mesut Ozil. And I've defended Ozil until the cows come home, but I agree that he's not pulling his weight. And it's a real problem. And for a manager, if you're being told I've got no money to spend and you're paying Mesut Ozil, you're upset. And I get that. And I get why you'd want to move him on. But if you think that the club are going to just say, okay, Unai, you know, a manager, by the way, that's only on a 2-year contract because they've got a termination clause. So then you're saying, you know, I don't even know if I want to stick with Unai. So am I going to do myself damage now by shipping Ozil out? Ozil will win this battle, unfortunately. And that, for me, tells me that the club are not fully behind this manager.
I mean, talking about the manager, right? And we're all talking about getting this manager, getting that manager, sack Emery, go through 2, 3, go through this manager, go through that manager. I think the biggest thing we've got to look at here, right, is that we are not as big as anymore as we used to be. We're not. All right, it's a simple fact. We're a Europa League team, we're not as good as we used to be, right? You go back through the history.
Craig, so you're saying Man United? You're saying that with Man United, then it's the same principle. Then they're a Europa League team.
Well, yeah, but
people will still go to Man United. The reason they go to Man United is because they're a big club and they're paid big money. The reason they won't come to Arsenal is because we're a big club and we won't pay big money. That's as simple as that. Man United will still attract players.
Do you want players that are going to come and play for Arsenal for money, or do you want players who are going to come and play for the Arsenal?
We've got players that are playing for money and are crap. You know what I mean? Like at this moment in time.
So we need to get them out. We're all agreed there. So this is what I'm talking about when I say about signing Ryan Fraser, Lewis Dunk, and players like this.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Don't knock it. Don't knock it. I'm saying that.
Exactly.
But
people are only going to Man United for money. That's why they're signing for Man United. Sanchez went there for money.
Exactly. He didn't go to Arsenal for money, though, did he?
No, he didn't, because he came to the Arsenal because he wanted to play for the Arsenal
and Champions League football.
And Champions League football.
What I'm saying is to attract players, right? If listen, I'm not being biased here. I think Arsenal's a big attraction. Look at it. Look at the club. Look at the history. Look at the location. Right? Yeah, and it's got potential. Come on, the club's got potential if it's being run properly. It's got potential. Right?
Aubameyang came without Champions League football.
Yeah,
remember that?
Yeah, but he's on a good wage, so he had to pay good wages. You know what I mean? Like
and the fact that no one liked him at Borussia Dortmund.
Well, yeah, maybe, but he's proved them wrong by that, Craig. I think he's been a.
Well, he has. Well, you go on about you just said there about
Listen,
we're whoa, what was it you said? We've got who wants to come and play for Arsenal? We can't pay the wages. Listen, we can't pay the wages. We've got a wanky fan base, right? That if you put a foot wrong, you're going to get pelters from the sideline.
They're used to
it. We've got our social media is an embarrassment. You've got people atting players that they wish they were dead because they make mistakes, right? Who the fucking hell wants to come and play for the Arsenal when you've got to do all that?
Well, Torreira did. Players will always come play for Arsenal. You know what I mean? Like, listen, I can tell you one player that I've seen it on the chat here today. Wilfried Zaha wants to go to Arsenal. That's where he's told it he wants to go. Like, yeah, okay. Now, whether Arsenal will go and pay out the money for him and pay out the wages, that's a different thing. But if you want to become successful and be a really good side, Craig, and a big club, you have got to put your money where your mouth is.
Oh, I know that.
And that's all I'm saying. Now, you're asking an Arsenal fan. You can criticise Arsenal fans as much as you like. This and that and that. Arsenal fans pay the highest paid season tickets, right? So, I mean, and if you're getting crap, like a team that concedes 3 goals, 4 goals, 3 goals, 4 goals, 3 goals, you're entitled to have a moan about it and get something needs to be done. Now, on the Emery side of it all, if you're asking, my mate Tony made a great point, right? You might think this is silly, like, the 3 pigs. One built it with straw, right? Yeah. One built it with brick and the other one built it with wood. You know what I mean?
No, you've got that round the wrong way.
Well, whatever. Right. The one with a stone, with the one with the bricks, stays up, doesn't it? Why does it stay up? Because it's built properly. He's got the right tools to build the right house, right? The fact of the matter is, Emery is not being given the right tools. Now, I get what Harry's saying. Harry comes up with some fantastic points about Emery. Harry knows that I'm not all 100% Emery. I'm very worried about what Emery's done over these last 8 weeks. I think it's been absolutely abysmal, if you ask from my opinion. He's not rectified anything. You know what I mean? Like, all he had to do was shore up our defence and we get Champions League football. But what I'm saying now is, right, he has not been given the right tools to go on and do the job. Now, the club and us fans, we deserve a manager to be given the right tools. Now, George Graham was given I'll tell you, when George Graham went into Arsenal, right, they probably said to him, right, you're going to have this and this and that. So he had to pick and choose and win in the lower leagues to get quality players. Now, I don't get you say this about Mesut Ozil. People go, oh, he wins and all that. Like, I know that I go back to that sort of era and all that. Like, but this is where that Charlie Nicholas was replaced by Perry Groves, our Arsenal favourite, the man that we all loved, the Mesut Ozil of the 1980s. Was replaced by Perry Groves, right? And the fans accepted that because George Graham had got a solid base and we were starting to win games. Then he brought in Alan Smith. Then he brought in Paul Merson. And gradually Perry, unfortunately, for him, was moved out. But it was a structure to what George Graham was doing. Now, whether Emery is getting that, and I'm afraid, you know, I'm going to argue with this. There's got to be better players in the Premier League than, and even in League One, in the Championship, that are a better right back than Maitland-Niles. Simple. It's got to be, because he isn't a right back.
He's not a right back, yeah.
So telling me that there's someone there, you know what I mean? But we're not doing it. So, you know, so Emery's got to be at blame for that, you know. And Craig, if you're playing for, I don't know, Leeds, or you're playing for, I don't want to be too disrespectful teams, this say like Derby County, and Arsenal come in for you, you're going to go to Arsenal. Just like Lee Dixon did when he was at Stoke.
I get you there, right? I get you there. And I do owe an apology there to anyone I've offended by saying we're a wanky fan base. You know what I mean by wanky
I know what you mean.
Right? I'm not saying that everyone who pays money and travels up and down the country are wankers. What I'm saying is we've got a wanky fan base, right? You know, people dibs on there that hide behind avatars and they'll at players and wish death on them and all that malarkey. Yes, okay, I shouldn't be tarnishing Arsenal fans saying it's just us. It's not just us, but the majority of it has. I've never seen Liverpool fans threatening to kill their players because someone made a mistake. You know?
Do you think players, Craig? Do you think players look at that stuff?
Of course they do. Of course they do. Listen, you've got Lacazette and Aubameyang doing a Troops impression on Instagram.
Listen, you got Granit Xhaka said last week they don't look at what's said on social. Rubbish. You don't believe it.
Absolute rubbish. If you're telling me, Graham, that you're a professional footballer, right, and you've got Twitter, and you like, who knows? Who knows? Half of the Arsenal team might be following you, Graham, but they might be under something else. You just don't know, do you? Yeah, but who knows? You don't know.
Yeah, but they've got so many followers. They get so many thousands of.
No, but
messages.
What I'm saying is they could have a profile that we know nothing about. It could be at 123 knock on my door. Yeah. Might be. It might
I know
be.
You say about followers, Graham, like, and I do agree with Craig here that when they might have 1 million followers, but they're only following 1,000, or they're only following, so they're only getting that 1,000 people come through on their thing that you know, timeline. Other things come up on their notifications, but on their timeline, they've got the people that they're just following. You know, so I do believe that they do. You know, Petr Cech made something the other day. There was, you know, someone made a comment about Petr Cech and he jumped in and said about it. So that proves that they do.
But it's what modern life's all about. Social media, isn't it? The pressure of the game.
Listen, we had chat boxes when I played football. There was a little chat box, and we used to jump into it and all that. And they go, "Oh, judges, the bald-headed twats had a shit game today." You know, like, I'd look at that and I think, but I would never reply to it or whatever. It's their opinion, you know.
Probably because they weren't wrong. Yeah. But going back to this thing, Lee, that you're saying about if we brought in defenders from Leeds, Derby, this, that, and the other, right? I'm all up for that, mate. If they're good enough, bring them in.
It can't be better than what we've got.
What I'm saying is, what I'm about to say. Can you imagine the uproar amongst the fans if we brought in tomorrow a left back from Derby County?
Wouldn't bother me. I'll tell you what.
It wouldn't bother me either.
I'll throw out a name now that's available, like the player that was playing for Aston Villa, Mings.
Tyrone Mings, yeah.
Tyrone Mings, right? I'd have him over any one of our defenders. I'd have what's the one at Everton that's is on loan at Chelsea?
Zuma,
yeah. No,
Kurt Zuma.
Yeah,
I'd have Kurt Zuma, right, in place of any of those ones that we've got now. Like, you know what I mean? I'd have any right back at the moment because he's got to be better than what we've got at this football club. Arsenal Football Club have not had a right back for 6 months.
Yeah.
We've had, you know, Bellerin was, you know, and surely when you're looking at it as a coach or as a, you know, these people earning all this money, you have to look at the downside if a player gets injured. Well, if a player gets injured, who's going to come and cover that? Now, Liverpool, you know, with all the money that they had a left back problem once or time. They slipped John Milner in there, and he done a bloody job, Craig. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he's being coached and told what to do. And this is where Emery's got to come in, or whoever, and say, right, okay, but Maitland Knowles, has he improved as a wing back, right back defensively since the first day he moved into that position to now? No, he's not. There's got to be some sort of improvement down the line, and there isn't. You know, and this is my worry about Emery. That's when I go into it, and I'll go into bat with him about not being given the right tools. But on that point there, where is the improvement from any one of our defenders from day one to now? And I can tell you that now, not one of them's improved. And if there is, please come and at me and tell me who, because I'm telling you there hasn't been one.
We talk about the players, Graham, Harry. We talk about the players coming in, right? You know, he's not good enough. He's not good enough. He's not good enough. You know, who are we to say that they're not good enough, right? Now, what about I turn it on its head and I talk about managers that we could bring in, right? You're talking about. You said it earlier. There's no top class manager available that will come in and manage Arsenal. Do we really need a top class manager, or do we need a man? Do we just need a man who will come in and manage?
No.
For example, let's say tomorrow we woke up in the morning and Emery was sacked. This is just all hearsay, just for the discussion. Emery was sacked, and we took on, and it came up on Sky Sports News that Rafa Benitez was the new manager of Arsenal. How would you feel?
I would be quite pleased with Rafa Benitez, because I know from watching him for years and years and years what his teams are about. I know that the elements that we're missing, the organisation, etc., would be enforced by someone like Rafa Benitez.
Yeah.
So in that
What would you say if you woke up in the morning and Eddie Howe was manager of Arsenal?
I wouldn't be pleased. But
why?
Because what it is, Craig, it's not for me. It's not about. I'm not for a second saying that Arsenal were wrong to appoint Unai Emery when they did, because when they did, I was like, yeah, he might do all right. I wasn't sitting here saying that he'd be bad, but I've watched him for a year and I don't like what he's done. So my way of looking at it is, right, we're not going to find the right man straight away. Nobody does. Clubs rarely do. Look how many managers Spurs went through before Pochettino. Look how many managers Manchester United are still going through. You're going to go through that. You know, Liverpool brought Klopp in. Klopp impressed straight away, in my opinion, in the sense that, you know, yes, they didn't finish great in the league, but you could see what he was trying to do. You could see the future. Whereas with Emery, I haven't seen that. So my viewpoint now is not, why did we hire him? That's not at all where I'm coming from. My point is,
that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, you wake up and I'm doing it for, it's just obviously hearsay. But what I don't understand is why we would be happy with one and not another one.
Because I want to see.
I don't get it.
I want to see. I would rather see someone who, for example, the Ajax manager. Right? It's just an example. Somebody who would come in and implement something, and that I can grab onto as a fan and get on board with. I haven't got on board with Unai Emery, and I've spoken to people that Valencia fans, when we were doing the Valencia previews, I spoke to a few people, and the first thing that any Spanish football fan will tell you about Unai Emery is that he's too pragmatic and that his football's boring. Now, and that's coming from Valencia fans, and that's absolutely fine. On the one hand, I wanted someone that was a little bit more pragmatic. But to come in and go and hire someone who's more pragmatic and be worse defensively means that it's not the right fit. So cut our losses and move on. I'm not saying the club were wrong to bring him in or anything like that, but now it's time to move on to the next one and try somebody else. If they go and hire someone who's not a big name again, it won't be ideal for me, but at least I would be on board with the fact that they're trying to do something about it and trying to improve the team.
I think we're missing the point here, and I don't think the problem's a manager at the moment. I do agree with Harry; he's too conservative, and his football, I think, is too conservative. But for somebody whose football is conservative, he hasn't got the defence well enough drilled, and we still concede goals. But I think the problem is not the manager. The problem is Kroenke, right? The problem is above Unai Emery. It's the fact that he's not been given the money. He's not going to get the money, not because he's not good enough as a manager. He's just not going to get the money. Now, you talk about Klopp and you talk about Guardiola, but we knew what they were trying to do, Harry. You could see what Klopp was trying to do, but look how he finished with that squad. You look at that squad he had 4 or 5 years ago when he inherited the Liverpool team that came 8th or 9th. Remember, he played 3 successive Europa Leagues. He only got the money once they got back in the Champions League, and he struggled to implement his philosophy with those players he had. Look at Guardiola. He's being bankrolled by Abu Dhabi. He tried to play out from the back with defenders who were incapable of doing it and got smashed 4 at Leicester, 4 at Tottenham. Now, if you'd said after year 1, you're not going to get any more money, Guardiola, but if you don't improve this, you're off. He would not have turned that Man City team around so quickly. He turned it around because he got 200 million on defence. He could invest in a goalkeeper for 50 million. When he didn't like him after one season, change him with another goalkeeper for 50 million. And he basically was given money. The problem is what Emery's working with at Arsenal is an owner who's not putting any money in, Harry. That's the problem.
But Graham, the point is, though, that as a club, you would trust when Guardiola's telling you, I need another goalkeeper, you would trust him. When Klopp's telling you, I need this, I need that, you would trust him because Klopp and Guardiola had both been big winners previously before coming to the Premier League. Klopp, against all the odds, took that Dortmund team to a Champions League final. He won the Bundesliga, toppled Bayern Munich. Guardiola's football is probably the best football I've seen in my entire lifetime in terms of style and the achievements he had with Barcelona. So those guys have clout to say to a club, this is what I'm going to do.
But they would not have got.
Because I do this.
But Guardiola would not have got 200 million at Arsenal, would he? And Klopp would not have got the sales to bring in 150 million pounds as a goalkeeper and defenders at Arsenal if he had been our manager either. We clearly missed the boat. Wenger stayed too long. We know that. Wenger stayed too long. We might have had Klopp, but we didn't. And I think we need to move on from that. The issue is with Emery is he's been brought in to clean up the mess. I think you need he's somebody who's going to come in and basically work towards getting us back in the Champions League. He's not the final solution, but he's part of the way we're moving forward. And I think we have to give him at least another year, a minimum of one more year. So to dismiss him after this year.
That I sat here at the start of the season and I said he gets a free ride this year.
Yeah.
And he's got it. He gets a free ride off me. All right. So people going on about.
Sorry, one thing. How often do you guys have appraisals at work?
Never.
Graham, how often would you have an appraisal at your job?
Every year. Every
year. Exactly.
Yeah.
So why is it wrong for me to, after a year, look back at Emery's season and base my opinion on it? In any other profession, you'd get an appraisal at the end of the year. So why do we have to give Unai Emery 2-3 years before we can say a bad word about him?
Well, we can still, you can say a bad word about him, but I don't think
you can say a bad word. You can say a bad word
criticise him.
Yeah, there's got to be, you can have a go at him, but you've got to, like I've done it. And, people who watch this podcast now, I stuck up for him every which way I can. But when the season's finished and I sit back and I actually think about it, yeah, he fucked it up.
Yeah.
There's two no ways about it. But
anyway, Harry, can I just say, Harry?
One second, Graham. I think that we need to give him a summer transfer window.
Yeah.
We need to see if he's going to bring in players that will play his way. Another thing he needs to do as well is to round up the players that will not do what he wants or not play how he wants and get rid of them. Simple.
And the board needs a backing for that, Craig.
Pardon?
And the board needs a backing for that. If he's saying,
yes, they do. They do. He needs backing from the board. Absolutely. I said earlier. I said on Twitter, he needs to round everyone up and just get rid of them after the Europa League final. People that if you don't it's like this, Harry. You say about having an appraisal at work, right? But if you go into work and you're not doing what your boss says, he'll fuck you out, right? So why is that different here at this football club?
No, you're absolutely right. I agree. If you can shift players out that aren't doing what Unai Emery wants, by all means, if you're going to give this manager the job, then let him do it his way. But the problem is that we all know that that's not going to happen, is it?
You can't get rid of all of them, Harry.
Exactly.
You can't get rid of all of them.
Chat box earlier on, people were saying to me, "Why would you get rid of Emery and not the players?" Because you can't change a whole squad overnight, but you can fire a manager. And that's just the way it is. That's the way football works. A team doesn't perform. A team doesn't get results. Who's responsible? Who's the first to go? The manager.
I think what we need to do is we've got to develop a winning culture at the club. That's what we need to develop, a winning culture. But I don't think it's going to happen straight away. I think we've just got to. It's like baby steps. I think he's been brought in to get us back in the Champions League, right? That's the first thing he needs to do, get us back in the Champions League. We had a great opportunity this season, probably a bigger opportunity than we ever imagined, and he obviously blew it, and that was worrying. But I think that we still have to keep faith in him. We need to sort of like look at how we need to strengthen the project. You talked about the Raul Sanelli and what's his name of the other guy, the Indian guy. Yeah, they've got their plans, aren't they? And I don't think they said we've got a plan for if we get back into the Champions League and a plan for if we don't get back into the Champions League. And I think that still includes the manager. And I think that they will look at ways of supporting him. But I don't see him as a long-term solution. I see him as sort of somebody who's been brought in to get us back in the Champions League. And I think that's what they did because he had success in the Europa League with Seville. And I think that's the reason why he was brought in, because he had success in the Europa League, and obviously it didn't work for him in the final. But I think they see him as someone who can get us back in, if not for a league position, through the Europa League.
Yeah, I agree.
So if we get to the Christmas of next season and we're way off the top four, what happens?
Well, he goes at the end of the year, doesn't he?
It depends.
He goes at the end of the year. He goes at the end of the year. If we're out and we're dead and buried by Christmas, he goes at the end of the year. There's no point sacking him halfway through the season if we're dead and buried.
Well, we might still be in the Europa League.
Why not give someone else time to embed something?
We're going to be in the Europa League to the last.
Yeah.
Aren't we?
We might be in the Europa still, won't we?
Yeah,
we might be. But what if we're not? All right, then what?
If we're out of if we ain't got no chance of top four in January, we're out of the Europa League, which would be a travesty being out of the Europa League when it's a Mickey Mouse group stages, Craig. Come on, but if we are, then he's got to go.
I know that, mate, but I'm just using it for. I'm saying it for
that's an example. Then he needs to go and sharpish.
Okay, yeah. Well, I don't see that. I wouldn't see the point of sacking him, to be honest. What would be the point?
I think he'll get 2 years. He'll get 2 years.
Yeah, because in realistic shape or form, boys, we're not going to go out of the Champions League at the group stages.
No, because we're not in the Champions League.
The Europa League in the group stages. We're not going to do that. We play all the.
Everyone in the chat here is saying 80% of the people in the chat here are saying that Emery is not the problem.
I agree. It's Kroenke. It's above him. Yeah, Kroenke.
What my honest opinion, he gets another year. But I could tell you this now: if we're in the same position like we are this time next season, and he's got to go, and he messes it up like with those last 8 games, I don't give a monkeys. Emery out. Simple as that. You know what I mean? Simple.
But it's going to be hard because I mean, we all know that we've got loads of money. But we've only got loads of money if the owner will give it to him, right? So what I would like to see, or I'd hope he'd do, is that Emery goes into a meeting at the start of pre-season, whatever, or whenever the season.
This week they're having that meeting,
and they all go back to pre-season training. He goes to the board and he says, "Right, I want 150 million pounds, and these are the players I want." If the board turn around and say to him,
"Good luck with that,"
if the board turn around and say to him, "Sorry, Unai, we can't afford that," then if I was Unai Emery, I'd say, "Right, I'm gone."
Yeah, exactly. So would I, because he's, if he's a sought after manager like what a lot of our fan base think that he is, he'd get another job.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if he's not given the tools and the funds to work here, Harry's right. He's going to fail, so he might as well go.
Just one quick question. Yeah. Allegri is available at the moment. If Allegri came in at Arsenal with these players, will we qualify for the Champions League next year?
Yes.
Allegri.
Yes.
You reckon?
Do you know what? This is going to get me dogs abuse. We would have qualified for the Champions League this year if Arsene Wenger was still in charge.
Well, I don't know about that.
I mean it. Some of those games where we haven't attacked and we've been, we would have dropped more points against the bigger sides, but we'd have picked up more points against the smaller sides. And there are more smaller sides in the Premier League.
Oh, I disagree.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so. People are calling you a legend in the chat box, Harry. I think you're.
That's probably one, and then I'm going to get 10 bad ones.
Yeah. Listen, we've been going.
That's his wife.
We've been going for over an hour and a half. Would you believe?
Unbelievable! Great discussion. I've got to say, it's terrific.
It was good. I've got to call it sometime because
no worries.
I've got to get home. But it's been a marvelous season for the same old Arsenal.
Yeah, for us, it is,
yeah. Okay, we had a few breaks there during the season where I kind of fell off the wagon, but we finished. We got into the FBAs. We got into the last 15 of the FBAs. Unfortunately, didn't win it, but we got to the last 15. So thanks to everyone who voted for us. We really appreciate it. I'd like to thank Graham for joining us this year. What an addition you've been, mate! I can't wait. I can't wait for us to get going again next year. So thank you very much, mate. I highly appreciate it. And it's an absolute honour to have you part of this panel.
No, absolutely. Craig, can I just say that I've enjoyed it. Thank you for inviting me on, and being part of this team with Lee and Harry and yourself has been a real privilege. Thank you very much.
Excellent, mate. You're more than welcome. Mr. Harry Simonu, pretty much what I said about Graham, really. It's an absolute privilege to have you on here, talking every week. An absolute honour to share this podcast with you.
And good luck with his new career.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. For once, I'm actually going to let you plug your new channel.
Thanks very much. No, it's been an absolute pleasure being on as well. I love chatting with you guys every week, and even when my missus is having a go at me and saying to me, "Oh my God, you're on another podcast," I don't miss this one. I really enjoy it and love chatting to you guys, and I've made 3 great friends as well from it, so can't complain. But yeah, I've set up a new channel. It's just Harry Simonu Media, as some of you might have seen on Twitter. I am starting a career in football. I've got some freelance work lined up for the summer, and fingers crossed that carries on throughout next season, and I can do what I love. And you know what they say, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. So fingers
well
crossed.
done, mate.
Well done, mate. Congratulations.
Are you gonna plug Chronicles of Laguna, Craig?
No,
that's a direct compare. We can't.
No. Chronicles of Laguna. No. Chronicles of Laguna. Harry's podcast. I'm not plugging it. It's Harry's podcast, though. By the way.
Hey, and the judge, he won his golf. He won his golf competition yesterday, Craig.
Well, by default, I heard.
Well, don't listen to it like another 2 times champion.
Tony DM me, mate. He won it by default.
Did he? Ask him why it was default. Did he tell you?
No. He said don't listen to Judge when he goes on there tonight bragging about the golf. He won it by default.
Was Michelle up there with you?
Michelle was there, but she doesn't play golf. She's my caddy.
She wasn't playing golf, though. She was spending his money. Lee Judges, my absolute... I don't know how to explain it.
Buckets of spade?
Loyal to your Hardy.
My bucket to my spade, my cigarette to my lighter,
my heart to your wallet.
My mobile phone to my charger. I couldn't live without you, mate.
Very, very nice to say. Just want to say, thanks for everybody supporting us this year. It all started off in Dublin. Do you remember in Dublin for the pre-season game? And that was the first time we met. And we've done a couple of things there. It was fantastic. And the channel's going from strength to strength. Quality, guests. I love Graham for his honesty and everything there. Harry, sometimes we don't agree, mate, but we always it's a great discussion, and that's what it's all about. We're never always going to agree, but it's great to get different points of view. If we all kept going on with the same agreement, we would never show. So it's great there. But also, I've got to say, Craig, thanks for you, mate, because I do believe that you are the best host out there. I really do believe that, and you do a great job what you do, and I think that you bring it all together, and you don't get the credit you deserve, mate. So thanks for everything.
Thank you very much indeed. The final thanks, of course, is to you lot who come and watch us every week.
Fantastic.
Over 300 of you watching us tonight. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Nigel Plum and Karen obviously misses the same old Arsenal as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, got to thank Nigel. He does it every week.
Oh yeah, I was going to get to that, but
sorry, Craig.
Sorry, Craig. Yeah.
That would be nice. We might just go through a season, but I can still sack you. Yes. Obviously, the last thank yous go out to everyone who watches us every week, who comes along and takes the time out to come and listen to us blaring on about what we think would put the world to rights. And of course, mustn't forget to mention Nigel, who is a silent member of this team. He does the chat box for me every week, moderating it, making sure that we're not getting trolls and stuff coming in, no homophobic, racist or anything like that kind of stuff in the chat box. So Nigel, thank you very much, mate, from all of us. Thanks very much for what you do. I really, really appreciate it. We're going to have the summer off, I think. I think we'll start again just after pre-season begins. We'll get together and we'll have a chat about what we'll be expecting for next season. Another good thing is I haven't got to wear this shitty Puma gear anymore. Hopefully when we come back next year, we'll all have some nice Adidas stuff on. The season's done. I'm so glad this season is over. It's done. It's dusted. We can look back on it as much as we like, but we can't change a thing. It's done. Let's look forward to next season. Let's get behind the players. Let's get behind the manager, whoever it might be. Let's get behind players who we bring in, whoever it might be. They've come here, hopefully, to play for the Arsenal. If they've got an Arsenal shirt on, we support them. Until we see you all again, take care of yourselves and up the Arsenal.
Have a great summer.